everybody, James Shepard here, talking to you about B2B payments and really dominating the B2B space going into 2022 and beyond. I love the B2B payments opportunity, and in this video I'm going to explain to you what the opportunity is and why I believe it is so awesome. Before I dive into that, let me say that we have created a new resource that's called the Merchant Sales Insight, and I work with companies that I really believe in, that I think have some fantastic solutions, and I work with them to create a kind of an e-magazine that explains it. So we do have an edition of the Merchant Sales Insight. You can go to ccsalespro.com/acceptblue, all lowercase, to find that. But in this edition, I worked with AcceptBlue, which is a processor agnostic gateway. So I do want to mention them right up front because they've got some really cool tech for B2B. So let's talk about B2B payments for a second. 28 trillion with a T, trillion-dollar industry. In other words, there's $28 trillion in B2B payments happening on an annual basis. Of that, about 6% or 1.8 trillion, somewhere in there, is going to end up being card payments. Over 12 trillion is going to be checks, not ACH, checks, paper checks. Okay, this is an antiquated, terrible experience for everybody involved, and it's one that is open for innovation and change. So let me give you a little bit of background, a couple of tips, and we'll be done. For the background, okay, what is a B2B payment? Think about a pizza shop that you'd go into. If you set them up for maybe a cash discounting or surcharging or some kind of regular payment processing account, Interchange Plus, you'd be enabling what we would call B2C payments, meaning the business is selling to the consumer and they need to get paid. When we're talking about B2B, we're talking more about like the vendor or supplier that is supplying the ingredients to the pizza shop, okay? So that pizza shop might be making a payment once a month of $2,000 or $3,000 to several different vendors in order to get all the ingredients they need. Think about the company that provided the stove, right, to the pizza shop. That's an example of B2B payments where they're making usually larger payments to suppliers or vendors. That's what a B2B payment is. Now, why do I think it's such a big opportunity? Well, first of all, like I mentioned, it is an untapped opportunity. $28 trillion opportunity, only $1.8 trillion in cards so far. Most experts believe that we're going to see that expand. But the reason it's going to expand is you need to understand a little bit of the context of B2B. If I'm a supplier and I'm selling ingredients to pizza shops, there's a couple realities I have to face. Number one, when I send the ingredients to the pizza shop, they're pretty much never going to pay me up front, okay? So I have to send an invoice to get paid. And the way I'm going to get paid, it's going to vary a lot. As we know, small business owners, a lot of times they have cash flow constraints or they're just not great with tracking the details. So it's not uncommon, for me to give my pizza shop owner, hey, I'm going to sell you these ingredients and I'll give you 30 days to pay it. Well, next thing I know, 45 days go by and I haven't gotten paid. When I reach out, the check's in the mail. We've all heard that one. Now we have this really expensive collection process where the supplier is forced to finance everybody's purchases, these big purchases. And it's really annoying. So what a lot of suppliers are turning to is, hey, let's do card payments, right? Let's say, hey, pay us right up front, but we'll let you pay with your card. Well, now let's let Visa finance the transaction, right? So there's more of an interest in that. Also, ACH is growing in popularity as well because ACH is basically a check, but it's a lot less expensive than a card payment. It's electronic check, but it's a way for them to be notified, hey, I actually do know I got the payment. I'm not wondering if the check is really in the mail. I can see that I got this payment and it's going to clear in a couple of days, okay? So that's the dynamic you have to understand. There's a lot of other dynamics we could get into, but here's why I think it's a great opportunity. The truth is, in our industry right now, Square, Stripe, PayPal, we have all of these companies that are aggressively going after these retail, small restaurant locations. For those of you that are really successfully selling small and medium physical location businesses, the truth is the vast majority of you are selling flat rate pricing, you're selling cash discounting, you're selling surcharging, something along those lines. And in most of those cases, there's some kind of integrated ISV type, like integrated technology solution that goes into this. So it's integrated payments. Well, all of that is fantastic. All of that is great. And the vast majority of you are embracing those changes. And I think that's great. Here's the issue. For many of you, you have a lot of expertise in payments. You know how to read a payment processing statement. You understand some basics about interchange. You know what an issuing and acquiring bank is. You know what a downgrade is. You understand these things, right? Well, your understanding is not going to be fully leveraged becoming a software solutions provider. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, don't get me wrong. I think the vast majority of you should become software solution providers and integrated payment providers and focus on cash discounting and surcharging. But for many of you where your expertise isn't necessarily as much about the actual salesmanship, your expertise is that you actually understand payment processing, where can your expertise find the maximum amount of value? I would say today it's actually in B2B. Okay? Because with B2B, the big source of value is these are big transactions and we need to optimize the interchange. Many of you don't understand interchange optimization. I have a whole separate book I did on that. Read that book. But the idea here is interchange optimization is where we can provide additional data to clear the interchange at a lower rate. So it's such a big opportunity because your payments expertise to a B2B client, they're going to say, wow, this person really knows their stuff. They know what they're talking about. But here's the other reason I think it's a big opportunity. We're finally at a point now where technology is catching up, and there are some really cool solutions out there for B2B payments. Obviously, I'm going to talk about AcceptBlue because that's the sponsor of this edition of the Merchant Sales Insight. But if you go to accept.blue, so make sure you check them out. They're our sponsor. I really love what they're doing. Accept.blue is the website. But they have all this B2B payments technology. It's fantastic. They integrate with Salesforce and NetSuite, or they can just use their virtual terminal, which is what a lot of these suppliers like. These vendors and suppliers, what they want is super easy. Like, they just want a virtual terminal a lot of times. They just want to be able to enter the transactions and run them. They want to be able to send out an email or text receipt. They want to have a hosted payments page. Like, they want really kind of like basic trivial stuff. To us, we would think like, well, yeah, of course you want to email invoices with a link to pay. That's kind of a no-brainer, but in the B2B space, they don't have that stuff. A lot of people just don't have that. They're not offering it. So you go to these B2B companies and offer technology like Accept.Blue, all of a sudden you have a huge competitive advantage, and Accept.Blue is really made for B2B with a focus there, and so they automatically optimize the interchange. So you still need to understand a bit of it so you can explain it and how they're going to save money and you're going to have margin, but it's automated. It's pretty cool. Okay, so the technology is there. The last point I want to make about it, though, is the profit is there. Wow, is the profit there? Okay, you think you're making a lot of money on cash discounting? You should sell a B2B merchant. Okay, we're talking about big bucks. These companies are generating a lot of margin, a lot of residual because even a small supplier vendor, a lot of them are doing $1 million, $2 million, $5 million a month in processing volume. Well, if you offer interchange optimization and you can save them 20, 30 basis points, and you take a little bit of that for yourself as well as whatever their current margin is, next thing you know, you're bringing in $1,000 to $3,000 a month residual on one account. So these accounts are huge, and it's a big opportunity, and it's a totally untapped opportunity. So dominate B2B payments in 2022. If you want to download the full book, you can either go to ccsalespro.com/acceptblue, all lowercase, or you can actually just check out our podcast, the Merchant Sales Podcast. We put it out where we actually are reading. I read it like an audiobook. So if you'd rather listen to it, go to the podcast, or you can go to ccsalespro.com/acceptblue to download it. And like I said, support our sponsor. Check them out. Processor Agnostic Gateway, fantastic company, great technology, great focus on B2B. No per item or percentage cost. They do a really cool flat rate model. I think you're going to love it. Go to accept.blue and check it out. My name is James Shepard. I wish you great success dominating B2B payments in 2022.